Yes, as you know, Fortnum's is probably best known for having its flagship shop on Piccadilly, where we have been trading from since 1707, so over 300 years. More recently, we've opened a number of what we call satellite shops around London. So one in St Pancras, one at the Royal Exchange in the City, and we also have a shop and a restaurant in Terminal 5 at Heathrow, which I think, if you're looking for breakfast in Heathrow, it's probably the best breakfast you can buy. So you can even get 2 boiled eggs and soldiers. I mean, it's just wonderful. So we also have a shop and a restaurant in Hong Kong, which we opened just before COVID, actually. So it's really been shut down largely since the beginning of 2020. And we have a number of relationships around the country with other businesses who operate shops in shops for us. So, for example, we have a number of locations in Japan, which is a very important market for us, and in South Korea as well, and that's a model that we'd like to explore further. We're also opening in Dubai Airport, fingers crossed, in November. And one of the things that you'll notice about those locations outside Piccadilly is that they're all characterised by fulfilling, I think, quite a specific mission, which is either food on the go, and I'm thinking sort of really exceptional food, but sit down, perch at a bar and have something to eat. And from a retail perspective, they're really fulfilling a gifting mission, I think it's fair to say, in those travel locations. The thing about Fortnum's, and it's the same with any food retailer, is that your average item price tends to be relatively low. And what that means, and I learned this from my days at Waitrose, where Mark Price always used to say, you need to sell a lot of tins of beans to make the business model work, and it's the same at Fortnum's. So we like high intention, high footfall, high dwell locations such as airports. Our St Pancras store is opposite the entrance to the Eurostar, and as a result of that, those locations tend to work well. But it's also worth saying that we're now anywhere between 30 and 40% online, actually. And this is a shift that we've seen, obviously, really accelerate since the beginning of COVID, where everything went online. And we were basically shut. We had a few shops open, but we're largely shut. And pre-COVID, we were about 10% online. We're now anywhere between a third and 40% online. And that's the big, really big channel shift that we've seen. And what I'm pleased to say is that that wasn't just a sort of a spike that's then disappeared. Actually, what we've been able to do was acquire hundreds of thousands of customers online over that period of time and then hold on to them. And I think what online's done for Fortnum's is open up the brands to other parts of the country and indeed the world that aren't serviced by a flagship shop or some of our satellites.
Well, let's skip to that. I was going to ask about online a bit later, but let's go straight in and just focus a bit more on online then. So, a lot of supermarkets, and we spoke to Deliveroo, Wilshire Deliveroo yesterday, there was a huge uplift in sales online.
Yes.
And it's fallen back. I mean, in the case of, let's say, Waitrose, it was up at 20% and it's shifted back to sort of, the industry average, I want to say, is 13 to 15%. You say that yours is 30 to 40. Has it fallen back, and how much has it fallen back, or is it literally maintained or even grown?
No, it's so we've definitely seen a correction over the last sort of 12 months or so. But you've got to remember that this time, and we're very different to supermarkets. We're not a supermarket, and we don't, on the whole, fulfil a supermarket mission. I mean, we do have customers who push a trolley around Fortnum's, and I'd love more of them. But on the whole, that tends not to be the mission that we serve. We're fulfilling a mission which is slightly different. A lot of the things that people buy at Fortnum's are given to others, if you think about hampers, for example. But increasingly people are buying for self-consumption as well, particularly when they've been given a hamper and they do decide that the jam that they've been given is the best jam in the world and they want to replenish that. So, but we have seen a slight correction. If you think back to Christmas 2020, where are we now, 23? If you think back to Christmas 2021, so about 15 months ago, if you remember, the government at that point was saying to customers, was saying to people, if you want to spend Christmas with your elderly relatives, do not go to parties, do not go shopping, stay at home, self-isolate and keep yourself safe. And of course, all of that's unwound over the course of the last 12 months. So we're still annualizing the effects of COVID, even though most people feel that it largely ended as a pandemic in the country in the middle of much earlier on in 2021. So to that extent, we have seen it actually come back a little bit. But what we have seen is if I look over the last 3 years, our online business is 3 or 4 times the size that it was pre-COVID, and that shows no sign of ameliorating.
And what are the sort of products that you sell online if it's not the typical weekly shop? How small the orders are? How big are the orders? What are the types of things? Not including the hampers.
So excluding hampers, I mean, again, this is sort of where we differ to supermarkets. Excluding hampers, our average order value is approaching £100. So it's pretty healthy. And the great thing about food is that there are very little returns. I come from a business immediately before this that was fashion, where we were running at returns at 30 or 40%, which just killed the economics. Our average order value is pretty decent, actually. It's it's about somewhere between £80 and £100, depending on your week. And people are buying everything from wines and spirits they're doing larder replenishment. They're buying gifts for people. The thing about Fortnum's is that if you want to send a gift to someone from Fortnum's, it doesn't have to be in a hamper. We spent a lot of time over the course of the last year or so really improving the quality of our packaging. And so the idea is that if you want to send a gift to someone, it doesn't have to come in a hamper. The box is equally beautiful and sustainable and compostable and all of those sorts of things. But it's a very nice unboxing moment. There's a gift card in every order, there's a splash of colour, there's lots of storytelling. Because we really want to make sure that that our online orders are equally joyous, even if you don't just have a hamper sent to you.
It's interesting you talked about the packaging, but when I think of Fortnum's, I think of the beautiful biscuit tin that plays a lovely noise when you spin it. So that glorious sort of gifting kind of products, souvenir products, you might even say. Isn't Fortnum's just a souvenir brand? Or was it a souvenir brand? Was that fair? And is that fair now?
I think that's a really good question, and I think in many ways it's the tyranny of Fortnum's. I think that if we wanted to grow very quickly, there's a bunch of things that we could do. We could list our products on Amazon overnight, and I suspect we'd double our sales in 2 years' time. Do I think that's the right thing for the brand? No. The other thing that we could do is really go after the sort of the tourist market. And whilst I think that's sort of compelling, I just think it would be the wrong strategy for us. The best way to describe, I think, the journey that Fortnum's has been on, not just since I've been here, but actually going back, let's say, a decade, would be a decade ago, 30% of our sales were from UK domestic customers, and 70% were from visitors. And over the last decade, that has now flipped on its head. So actually 70% of our sales are from UK domestic customers and 30% are from international visitors. And I love our international visitors. They're hugely important to us. But what I want to make sure is that actually our products stand up to scrutiny from the most critical people, which I think are UK food consumers and people looking for something special.
And so how has that flip been achieved?
Well, I think, and again, I would say that this has sort of accelerated since I've been here, but for a while now. I'd love to claim credit for all of this, but I think this goes back longer than my tenure. There's been, well, two things I would say. First of all, a big investment in hospitality, and really high quality hospitality to go alongside the retail offer. And the great thing about hospitality, and indeed fresh, is that you can't really be credible in food in a business like mine without having a strong presence in fresh or hospitality. And I think if you're brilliant at restaurants and you provide amazing service with really high quality food, that translates into the retail offer. But I think the other thing is that the quality, I think we've taken much, much more notice about the quality of the products that goes in our tins and our packaging. And I love our packaging, and we spend a lot of time thinking about design and the aesthetic and what it means and the storytelling and really harking back to the best things about Fortnum's, our history, our heritage, all the rest of it. But I have to say I'm a firm believer that we will be found out, in fact any of us will be found out, if the quality of the food doesn't justify the price. It can't just be about the packaging. And my view is that if you focus on the packaging, if you're focusing on the product, and then you start to really think about getting your team really engaged in products, everyone tasting everything, offering discounts on products, and so our own teams get to eat the food that we sell. What you'll find is that quality gradually really begins to shine through, and I think that that's hugely important for us. You know, I have in many ways, you know, you could put a Fortnum's label on anything and it would probably sell, possibly at a premium. But that really worries me. That mindset really, really worries me. And actually what we've been focusing on over the last few years at Fortnum's is making sure that the product justifies the label. It's not justified by the label.
Very well expressed. You recently revamped the third floor of Piccadilly. Could you tell us all a bit more about the third floor? What's it about and what's the impact been? Because it's new and fresh, right?
It's like 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
So when I joined, we had menswear on the third floor. One of the things that we sort of grappled with when I joined was what does Fortnum Masons mean? What are we? You know, are we a department store? Are we the grocer to the then Queen? You know, are we a food? You know, what are we? And what we decided that we wanted to do was to really reassert our strength in extraordinary food and drink. That's what we wanted, sitting at the heart of what Fortnum's wanted to be about. And then there were concentric circles around that, so cookware, glassware, fine bone china, all of those sorts of things. A concentric circle outside of that, body, bath and beauty, you know, so there's a sort of a moment of joy within your home. And I think that that's probably as far out as we wanted to go. We had menswear, which I felt was a concentric circle too far away from that core of extraordinary food and drink. So we closed menswear, and and instead what we've done is that we've given the floor over to, it's about 4,500 square feet, so it's a big old space. And we've given some of it away to a food and drink studio. So we have a glassed off area, which is designed to be it's a fully equipped kitchen with real grums in there actually. So we do a lot of commercial mise en place preparation for the tea salon upstairs and for the restaurants down below and 45 Jermyn Street. We do food tastings in there. The team come in and do biscuit tastings and what have you. In the afternoon, we started to use it to do master classes. So how to make the perfect beef Wellington, or how to make the perfect Scotch egg, or pipe macarons, or something like that. And then in the evening, we're doing supper clubs and chef's tables. And so if you wanted to come and bring 10 clients with you and have dinner cooked for you by Monica Galetti, or the latest really hot chef from Lyme Regis, or John Javier from the tent at the end of the universe, you know, those sorts of restaurants. Then you can do that in the food and drink studio on the third floor. We've opened a gin distillery. I've been to 8 gin tastings in the last 6 weeks. I tend to do them in the afternoon rather than the morning. I started off doing them in the morning, that wasn't very helpful. Move them to the afternoon. And we've got a wonderful cook shop of it in there now, which is really elevated and designed to showcase the sorts of things that are going on in a food and drink studio. And so we've got beautiful sort of ceramic colanders. We've got a wonderful eau de Nil, which is the Fortnum's colour KitchenAid with a copper bowl. Over 2/3 of the products that are sold in Cook Shop are manufactured in the UK, and over half of those are made by individual craftsmen. So it's a really super elevated, beautiful luxury cook shop offer. And then we're opening a cocktail bar on Thursday this week on the same floor. Wonderful cocktail bar called the 3 and 6 bar, which 3 and 6 because that's how much we used to charge per head for a cocktail party at your home. On the third floor in the old days, we used to sell tennis courts. It's the most extraordinary thing. You used to come in and say, I'd like a tennis court, please, and they would say inside or outside.
Now, those things all sound fabulous, but we need to talk about the cost of living crisis. How is that impacting Fortnum Mason? Is it impacting Fortnum Mason?
For sure. I mean, it's look. I totally understand why you're asking that question. It's the issue that's facing everyone at the moment. The way I think about it is there are sort of two audiences that we have when we think about the cost of living crisis. The first is our customers, and like everyone else, we're subject to the same inflationary pressures that you're reading about everywhere, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that we don't automatically pass on those increases we're seeing from our suppliers onto our customers. It's worth saying that most of our suppliers, we're a relatively small business, most of our suppliers are very small businesses themselves. You know, we're not buying products from the big consumer groups businesses, we're not buying from Procter & Gamble or Unilever or any of those. And so the businesses that supply us are really feeling it. And so what we've been trying to do is do the best by them in order to ensure continuity of supply. There are some suppliers who we've been working with for 50, 60, 70 years now, hugely important to us, and so we want to make sure that they're looked after. So we're trying really hard not to pass those on to our customers, but of course we are. But the second group that we think about in relation to the cost of living crisis is our own people. And retail is it's a low-wage employer as an industry. And we've done a number of things there. We've reinstituted bonuses. We paid bonuses last year for the first time in years, which I'm really pleased to say we were able to do. We gave a pretty decent pay rise actually. It was about 5 or 6% for the business overall, and we communicated that very, very early, which allowed people to plan. And then the other thing that we did, which might seem small, but I think it sort of served two purposes, was that we increased the level of discount on food to 40% for staff. Partly because we wanted our teams to have, because it's just a nice benefit to have as much as anything else, and it takes the edge off. But also because we wanted our teams to taste more of our food. It was really important to us that people who work at Fortnum's get to eat the food. Otherwise, it becomes a rather divisive setup, particularly for a business like us. And of the things I would say that we did, that by far was the most popular with our own teams. So the answer to your question is it definitely is affecting us. And we're doing, well, I guess we're taking all the steps we possibly can to ease the burden on our own teams and our customers. The other thing I would say is that this year, on pay, my guess is that what we'll end up doing is adopting the principle which says that the lowest paid people in our business get the biggest rises.
And one other final question on that is about absorbing costs and cost cutting. So,
Yeah.
Look at the supermarkets, if you do that sort of thing, are you absorbing costs? And if so, how are you doing so? How can you be judicious in saying, this one we have to increase, but this one we're going to keep at this level? There's no entry level value tier at Fortnum, let's face it. So how are you managing that?
So the way really we're doing it is by focusing on our own productivity, actually. And I think that there's nothing like actually both the cost of living crisis and the agenda on sustainability to really focus your mind about removing waste and reducing costs. And we're finding that is by far the most effective way of, whilst you might have some gross margin compression, it's by far the most effective way of making sure that you deliver enough free cash flow that then allows you to reinvest back into the business. And so that's what we're doing. So yes, to a certain extent we've been putting prices up, of course we have. And it's pretty much across the board actually, and broadly speaking it's somewhere between 7 and 10%, which I don't think is out of the market with anyone else. Because we're not as exposed to the broader market, so things like dairy, which is really where we've seen the spike in costs. The overall impact is sort of slightly diminished for us, but nevertheless it is real. But my sense is that a combination of sensible price rises where we think we're able to move, and of course we come up against all the pushing through price points and all those sorts of things. You know, it's easier to raise something from $8.95 to $9.95 than it is to raise something from $9.95 to $10.95, for example. So we're sort of managing our way through that. But really what we're just trying to make sure alongside that is that the quality of our food justifies the price as well. So in many ways what we're doing, instead of launching things like value ranges, what I'd rather Fortnum's did is zig rather than zag and actually go after quality. So this is the moment that we should be putting more strawberries in our jam, more butter in our shortbread, and I think the customers are responding as a result.
Let's just quickly, I have to talk about baked beans, because famously Fortnum Mason was, I think, the first grocery store in the UK to sell baked beans. Now, you mentioned a minute ago that you don't work with any of the major global multinationals, including, so you don't sell baked beans, or at least you certainly don't sell Heinz baked beans. So, do you sell an even more expensive upmarket baked bean? And a second question on that front is, what is these days your best-selling product?
So we don't sell baked beans, but we do sell a lot of things.
Not even gold-plated ones.
No, not, I'm not saying be very nice for once. We do sell a lot of things for your larder and your fridge. So, you know, if you want fabulous chutneys or truffle baked nuts or some Neapolitan chocolate, you know, there's a lot of things that you can fill your larder with from Fortnum's, for sure, and things that will make a difference when you're cooking. We have our own version of brown sauce called 181 sauce, which is truly delicious. Absolutely, and actually Marco Pierre White, I gather, uses it as a cooking ingredient in his own dishes. I gather that
Fortnum Mason's MSG.
Umami. I prefer to call it umami.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So no, we don't sell baked beans. Best-selling products at the moment actually are our coronation range. Fortnum's enjoys it, is enjoying the coronation. We're thrilled for the King. Actually, we're very excited for a couple of weekends' time. And but like all retailers, of course, when you have a really good time in trade, you suddenly start worrying about the like-for-like weeks in 12 months' time. I can't help that. I've been doing this for years. But the coronation is important to us. So at the moment, our top 10 lines are all coronation lines. Outside that, Toffalosis biscuits or pistachio and coffee cream biscuits, which are $19.95 and $13.95 respectively. Great products, really, really wonderful products, beautifully designed. And I don't know whether anyone's had a Toffalosis biscuit, but they truly are the best biscuit in the world. I would encourage you to try one. I must show you. I bought some products with me actually. Well, I bought some.
You brought enough for all of our.
No. I have bought some coronation biscuits. These are Scottish ling heather honey biscuits, which are absolutely delicious.
Why don't you and I eat them, and everyone can watch and feel envious?
You'll need two hands to open it because it's sealed. Does anyone want to open this? Come and open these and pass them around. They're delicious. There's a delicious sort of earthy honey in there, which is really good. And I bought you some jam as well. Coronation jam. I bought these in the hope that you might ask me some nice questions. And I bought you a nice coronation bag too. Yeah, there you go.
So, well, I'll ask you a nice question about the jams. You said you need to put more fruit in them. What percentage were they? What percentage they are?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm only deep. God, retail is detail.
If I don't know the answer to a question, I'll admit it.
There's honesty for you. We're seeing. We talked about that. So sorry. Online, just online. A lot of retailers don't make money from online. I realise I haven't asked you this question. On grocery online, is it profitable for you?
It is profitable for us, and I think that funnily enough, I think about Fortnum's less like a grocer and more. And actually more like a brand, actually, in many ways. But if I was to think about us as a department store, for example, the reason why online works for us is because over the course of the last few years, our growth online hasn't just been about translating our customer base from one channel to another. So you end up with two cost bases, but one customer franchise. The great thing about online for Fortnum's is that it's opened up our market, opened up our brand, to certainly the rest of the country. So if you live in Manchester or Birmingham,
couriers and so forth, rather than people on bicycles and in vans.
Yeah, we put it through the courier network.
All third party.
Put it through the courier network, yeah. And absolutely. And but what it's meant is that we've been able to acquire new customers to the brand who don't normally have access to it. So if you live in Manchester or Birmingham or Liverpool or Edinburgh, you don't come to Fortnum's, you don't come to Piccadilly or London every day. But being online allows us to access those customers, and as a result of that, what it's done is it's given us a bigger slice of a customer pie that perhaps we didn't have previously.
Let's talk quickly about ranges and how you approach ranges and selection generally.
Yeah.
You come from Waitrose, you've got all that experience of, as I say, tiering and ranging and so forth. So what have you done in terms of to change the range? And what is your advice to new suppliers who want to tap into the evolution in the Fortnum's range?
So we don't tend to do, we tend to do good, better, best architecture through pack sizes or bottle sizes or tin sizes rather than through value. The idea is that everything you buy at Fortnum should be the best of what it is.
Entry price point equals a small bit.
Yes, exactly right.
But in terms of the types, how many food products, for example, did you have, and do you have, and will you have, and which categories within it have you shrunk versus expanded?
So within food, it's difficult to say. I mean, I think, of course, I arrived in the middle of COVID, where it was all very odd anyway. The only way I can answer that question is to sort of say we've moved out of those categories that felt actually concentric circles away from food. And so what we're doing is putting more effort into food and the things that sit around it, and closing down the things that just didn't make any money. So I've mentioned menswear. I've mentioned menswear, but there are others as well. We had men's grooming. There were a bunch of services that we had. But the truth is that really what we're trying to do is, alongside that, focus on the services and the experiences that sit around food as well. So the food and drink studio really is designed to appeal to perhaps a slightly different customer to the customer we've appealed to in the past. But again, the great tyranny of Fortnum's, I always think, is that when I got the job, everyone told me, everyone, including my mum, said, don't for God's sake change anything. And of course, what I really want to do is change everything. But the way to do it is to change it in a way that, so everyone thinks it's changed when they look back, it doesn't feel so jarring. But when they look back over 10 years, they realise everything's changed. And the one thing that we did do was kick off some supper clubs with William Sitwell, who I knew well from my Waitrose days. And what I noticed at these supper clubs, we would sell tickets for 85 quid a head. We're still doing them now, actually, slightly cheaper now. We were selling tickets for 85 quid a head, including wine. We'd get a chef from around the country who would come, William would sort of introduce them. And there was one supper club we had where Dan and George came and cooked from Rothway Manor up in the Lake District. And his first course was a Korean chicken wing. And I turned around halfway through the starter, and I suddenly realised we had 100 people in Fortnum Mason on the ground floor, all eating chicken with their fingers. And I thought, this is really cool, there's something really in this. And what you realise is that it's not dumbing down. In fact, it's the opposite of that, because this wasn't just any chicken wing, this was the world's best Korean chicken wing. But it was informal, and it was warm, and it was welcoming, and it was friendly. We had people from all backgrounds, but all interested in food. And as I walked around the room, they were all sharing, everyone was sitting on long tables. So you just turn up in twos and threes. We had one couple who came to the first one who were on their first date, and they've been to every single one since. I'm dreading the one they don't turn up to, actually. But but what I realised was that there's a crowd out there which is looking for something different when it comes to food, and the sort of juxtaposition of what people think Fortnum's is and actually what we were offering was really powerful from a brand perspective. And that is what gave us the idea for Food and Drink Awards. It's what's given us the idea for sort of sponsoring cool events around the country, appearing in unexpected places, and then starting to invest in sort of innovation and new products that are really exciting. And I think in many ways, all we're doing is rediscovering that sense of innovation that Fortnum's already had, to bring you back to your baked beans point.
Great. I've got lots more questions I want to ask you, but I do want to open this conversation to the audience. We've got a big audience here. So does anybody have a question? Lady at the front.
Yeah. Where have the biscuits gone? Where have they got to?
Sorry, just
If you could say who you are, where you're from.
It's Michelle from Charity with Life and Mental.
Great.
Just a question. So
Sorry.
you mentioned that you're focusing so heavily now on the food side of things. So I'm curious to know, how do you go about evaluating the products that you're taking on for sale and new suppliers?
I mean, in many ways, the same that most food businesses do, but with I guess with an added focus on tastings. I mean, it always amazes me that the businesses take on particularly food products without ever actually tasting them, which I find bizarre. And to a certain extent, I think that Fortnum in the past has been guilty of that. Again, a while ago now, certainly predating me. And I think that we've made a sort of everyone now tastes everything, and we make it part of. We talk about it a lot as much as anything else. And so when we do tastings, we now do them in the food and drink studio. So it's now behind glass, and so our customers can see us doing the tasting. So I went down to the food and drink studio the other day, and Ossie, who's our tea buyer, was there doing the whole tea tasting against the long. That was just amazing. And of course, all of those things just reinforce your credentials in food more broadly. The other thing, and I mentioned to Adam earlier, is that the idea that just buyers should be tasting our food, I think is old-fashioned, it's siloed, and I think it's gone. And one of the reasons that I was really keen to see a significant increase in our level of staff discount was because I wanted everyone tasting the food, everyone. And not just our food in our retail shop, but food in our restaurants too. And I get the profile every day from all the people who are eating in our restaurants. And I'm really thrilled to see people from all over our business eating in our restaurants. Sort of every day taking their family there. It's now a really good deal for them. So it's just something that we take incredibly seriously. And we all love and talk about food the whole time. We're often out, sort of sharing ideas and telling people where our favourite places to eat in London are. And I think just having a passion for product, fundamentally, particularly when it comes to food, I want everyone in the business to have a real passion for product, not just the buyers, everyone. Whether you work in the concierge team, or you work in our 3 levels of basement, which is effectively a warehouse in Piccadilly, or up in Ely, where our distribution centre is. I want everyone to be taking products all the time. So I think the answer to your question, Michelle, is that it's sort of cultural rather than process-driven. It's sort of the way I think about it.
Yeah. Other questions? Time for one more, or maybe now's the yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Roberto from the Point 1888, a licensing agency in the UK. Do you think that the Masons do brand collaborations when it comes to products?
Increasingly, yes, we do. So I can think of a couple in food and non-food actually. So we like to do collaborations where it's more than just sticking a Fortnum's label on someone else's product, right? The best example I can think of that is there's a big emerging trend around London whiskey at the moment. So Bimber has a really fanatical following. And they distribute and tell their story about whiskey. It's all through social media. They launch a product or they drop. It's a bit like fashion. They do drops and then the whole thing sells out. 2 or 3 years ago, our amazing spirits buyer, Oscar, bought an old Oloroso sherry barrel and agreed with Bimber to put Shiraz and Bimber whiskey in the Oloroso sherry barrel. And then we sold it as Fortnum Mason's Bimber Oloroso whiskey. And it was absolutely superb. And I think that's probably the best example I can think of the sort of product collaboration I'd like us to do, where it's not just us lending our name to someone else's product, less so, and more about creating something where we bring something and they bring something like physical around food, and you end up with a product which is better than you had before. So yes, we do those things, and then we do similar things in non-food as well. So we find designers and makers from around the country and really championing heritage crafts. So I was talking about our cookshop offer earlier. We have a partner with Alex Cole, who's the most amazing metalwork, almost artist, and he creates these beautiful sort of wrought iron fish slices and soup labels and things with stunning copper either the slice is copper or the bowl is copper. And we do those sorts of things with him as well. And that's what that's doing is not only creating a unique product that you can't buy anywhere else, but it's also championing, I think, dying crafts, which is hugely important to us. So we do those sorts of things, yes.